Hey there, Business for Unicorns podcast listeners. This is Mark, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome free resource on businessforunicorns.com. If you ever find yourself feeling frustrated with your training gym because you know that there are all sorts of things you could work on, but you're not really sure how to prioritize, you don't know what's the most important thing to work on or what order you should be tackling your priorities, well, now is the time to go to businessforunicorns.com, click the button, and fill out our free self-assessment. With the Ultimate Training Gym Owner Report Card, you will gain immediate clarity on just where to be focusing your attention to create more positive impact on your community, to drive more revenue and take-home income, and to do it all with less stress and more peace of mind. So go to businessforunicorns.com, click the button, fill out that free self-assessment, and start building a business and life you love today.
Well, hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Today I'm here with the one and only Mark Fisher. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well, in spite of the impending apocalypse.
Yeah. So the topic we're going to cover today is the impending financial apocalypse. But before we talk about that super fun topic, we just want to take a moment to reflect on how bananas our enrollment has been for Unicorn Society, and just say thank you to all you fitness freaks out there who've expressed interest in joining, because we're like sold out already. It feels crazy, and I'm just so grateful.
Yes, it's feels good. It feels overwhelming. I have to say it's been really exciting, and we're trying to figure out why you're all so eager all of a sudden. I don't know what we did that's wildly different, but yeah, for context, we have, we talk about this and it's one of those things that sounds like it's marketery, but it's not. We have a cap on the number of members we can handle before the whole thing falls apart. We hoped to maybe hit that, maybe sometime next year, and we hit it in the past couple of weeks with all the people that have signed up. So thank you so much to all of you. And we'll also say very briefly, if that sounds super fun to you and you want to get in on some of the fun, although official enrollment technically ended 2 days ago as of this recording, there is a small chance, of course, there might be, I think, a couple of people that don't renew come June. So if you really want to join us, holy cow, move fast, because we are locking her down.
Yeah. Again, just thank you to everyone who expressed interest. We had great conversations with so many people. Not everyone's, as we've talked about, is a great fit for Unicorn Society. So if you weren't a great fit yet, stay in touch, my friend. As your business grows and develops, maybe we'll get to work together someday. And for those of you who still want to get on our wait list and talk to us, and maybe get one or two spots that might open up in the next month, just go to businessforunicorns.com, click on Unicorn Society, and that'll be the first step. But again, just thank you, friends. We're so excited about the group of fitness freaks that we've assembled. It's going to be so magical.
Yes, and I'll say, if you do decide to dive on in, fun things for this coming year, we have upcoming treats. We're going to do one in Boston, possibly. I don't know if I can announce this yet, because I'm not for sure it's happening yet, but it may or may not happen. But we were talking about potentially doing this as a combo of making sweet love to the Cressy Sports Performance Fall Seminar, and doing that as a combo event. So if that sounds fun to you. And then in November, we're actually going to an all-inclusive in Mexico, which we are pumped about, and you'll get to spend time not just with your fellow unicorn friends, but also my wife and my baby.
Yeah, the baby shark will be joining us in their first retreat.
First international trip.
Yeah. So even if you are not joining Unicorn Society right now, we usually release a handful of spots to join us for our retreats every quarter. And also so Boston September, Mexico in November, and then more fun in the next year. Let's
maybe more fun, or maybe apocalypse.
We'll see. Given today's topic, who knows about 2023? Let's just take it one day at a time. So our topic today is that many of us at least, are feeling real pressure that a recession is coming. Many of us, especially in cities like New York, we can say that our city has not felt like itself yet. People are not rushing back to commercial spaces. Small businesses are not reopening at the pace maybe we had hoped. People are not running back to our gyms as quickly as possible. That we are absolutely in the gym space still recovering from COVID, and the financial markets are all pointing in the direction that like the worst is maybe still in front of us from a financial perspective. So we want to just kind of unpack how we're thinking about this today. And while we're not, we're not financial experts, right? We're going to share our 2 cents anyway. It's never stopped us. So Fisher, what's your hot take these days about how we can best prepare for a possible impending financial catastrophe?
Yeah. So to tee up a little bit more context, this is partly inspired by my pal Julian Barnes, who runs an organization called Boutique Fitness Solutions, which is really cool. They do a summit every year, and they did a state of the industry, which we highly recommend checking out, which I think was a very good overview of what the landscape is like. And, the thing that's interesting and potentially daunting, how you want to look at it, is, well, gosh, that was like a month ago now when everything looked so much better. And then recently, part of what inspired this for the tipping point, I was like, all right, we should keep our eyes on, talk about this. Sequoia Capital is a very famous venture capital firm, which you may or may not have heard of. Now, obviously, venture capital heavily invested in tech is very different than brick and mortar training gyms. But nonetheless, I thought there were some cogent points about what's going on in the market at large. And it inspired me to say, hey, Keeler, we should maybe have a chat about this, how we're thinking about things and how we're preparing as brick and mortar people. Because the thing that is interesting is, my sense is over maybe the past 6 months or so, how well brick and mortar training gyms have rebounded is largely dependent on market and model. So it seemed anecdotally, small group personal training and one-on-one training has come back much, much faster. And for reasons that are probably obvious, large group styles, particularly in the boutique fitness class-based space, has come back a little bit more slowly. And those are averages, right? So there's exceptions to both. As always, excellent operators can tend to navigate challenging headwinds in various situations. Additionally, I think there's wild variance based on the market. So, for instance, Midtown Manhattan, perilous stats, they say something like only 8% of people have returned to the offices. So for those of you, and we've certainly seen this be true in the Unicorn Society, if you are in a neighborhood that is residential or suburban, in some cases rural, you might be doing as good or better than you've ever done. If anything, you might be catching the upswing of people actually really interested and now investing in their health and fitness, and that is amazing. If you are in downtown markets, not always, but oftentimes, those are the ones that are tending to have the biggest issues, because if you relied on a office crowd, that office crowd is still, in most of those markets, not there yet. And I think I might even make the case there's probably some variance depending on what subculture of America, literally what state you're in. But I think that's enough context to say, although it's looking different, the thing that we are, I think, all going to see is what's going on in the world at large. So although we are not financial experts, and I am one of those individuals broadly of the mind that predicting macroeconomic trends is the equivalent of, reading stones, like cutting the goat open, looking at the blood and be like, here's what's going to happen in the future. The reality is, nobody can deny what's going on with inflation. Nobody can deny with the Fed interest rates. We're seeing crypto has crashed. We're looking at the broader market is now moved into recession as of this recording for the stock market. No asset class is safe. Kind of everything is going down. We're seeing home sales are starting to plummet, which maybe is a good thing. It'll cool it off because the interest rates are going up, up, up. And there's probably not much of an end in sight. So these are all things that I think are going to start to trickle down. Now, the Sequoia Capital deck, again, is written for tech companies. So the thing to understand, because you always have to contextualize any business information you get, and not everything is broadly applicable. So these types of businesses, not all of them, but many of them, tend to have a really high month-to-month cash burn where they're looking to grow as fast as they can, and they're willing to be truly unprofitable for a long period of time. And when you're able to get access to tons of money because investors are looking to put their money somewhere because everybody has a lot of cash, interest rates are low, everybody's trying to get a return, those types of businesses can get investment money relatively easier. And that environment is changing. So, we're brick and mortar businesses. The fitness industry is often not necessarily recession, I think, proof, but perhaps recession resilient. But all of that to say, what is going to tend to happen, particularly for those of us that work in training gyms that tend to charge a slightly higher price point, on the one hand, you might say correctly, our clients tend to be slightly more affluent, but on the other hand, everybody's going to be feeling the crunch. And there's no doubt about it. Even the most steadfast student of human psychology is going to feel a little bit of a pressure when everybody's watching their portfolio crash, when everyone's reading terrible news in the news every day, when Elon Musk is saying, I'm going to fire 10% of people just because I have a bad feeling. I don't know whether that's an example of great leadership or not. We will leave for now. But this is an interesting situation. So anyway, I think that was just more queuing up of it. So I certainly have thoughts about what to do, but Keeler, I'm wondering, based on that, what are you thinking as far as what people should be doing?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic to cover because the reality is obviously none of us have a crystal ball. If we did, we'd be super rich if we really knew what direction this was going. And to your wonderfully colorful example, Fisher, I mean, trying to guess what's going to happen next is like reading tea leaves. It's just like, it's not a thing. And so here's the thing is, I think regardless of what happened next, I think there's probably three things I think are super crucial to weathering recessions, or whether one comes or not. These are good things to do. And these are three things I just pulled out of my butt, right? But I think number one is, I think as a fitness business, you need to have a diversified portfolio of where your clients come from. If you're used to only getting clients from one way, right? I only get clients who work in that building across the street, and that building is now only 8% full, right? I only get clients from Facebook ads, and now everyone's fighting for Facebook ads, and they're more expensive than others. So I think having a diversified portfolio of ways that you get clients in the door is going to be helpful at times when people's habits are changing rapidly, right? That people's, are working different places, vacationing differently, shopping differently. And so if you have a diversified ways of finding and attracting people, that'll be useful at a time like this. I think the second thing that's just always important to do is making sure that you are fighting in every way you can to have a healthy profit margin. Yes. Right. So often businesses who are playing a long game or, saying that, oh, I'm fine. We make a 5% profit margin, but that works for us because, it's fine for now. But it's not fine during a recession. Right? It's not fine when money gets super tight and you have to squeeze every penny. So I think always fighting for a healthy profit margin, which means your rates have to go up on a regular basis. You got to fire people if the attendance goes down. You got to fight for every single expense to be as low as possible. I think that's crucial. I think the last piece is either be good at saving or have access to cash some other way.
Sure.
Right. So either you have a healthy profit margin that means you're squirreling away money on a regular basis, or you have access to a line of credit you can dip into when needed, or you have a rich aunt. Right. I don't care what it is, but I mean, knowing that you have some access to cash when cash dries up a little bit. I don't know. Those are the three things I just think are so crucial when it comes to managing money, and become extra crucial at a time like this when I think a recession is likely coming. What would you edit or add to that list, Fisher?
I don't know that I have much to add to that. I think that's basically it. Yeah, it's interesting that, to the last point, having a stockpile or access to a line of credit, that's what we've done historically at MFF. So we've now had a line of credit for several years that we hold on to just in case. And we've got a pretty substantial war chest of emergency savings. Now, that's interesting because substantial is relative, right? And there are different ways to approach this. And there is a school of thought that I'm personally not a big fan of, keep 9 months of operating expense in your business. Particularly now, you can't do that. Inflation is too high. That money is lighting on fire because cash is going to be worth less every month now than it was the month before. So this is one of those things where you have to balance the science and the art of finance. I think you have to also assess your own level of comfort with risk. But I have tended to Keeler's point, we try to lead MFF in a place where the margins are substantial enough that we're okay, that even if there's like a bump, it's not going to hit us meaningfully. We do have an emergency savings account that represents enough OpEx that we're okay, because everything is, you're unlikely to go down to zero. And if you go down to zero, something like COVID happened and whatever, like things went really weird and you'll figure that out. And there's probably ways to drastically cut your expenses if you go down to zero as well. So I like having some OpEx, but not too much, and then access to a line of credit. But I think broadly, as far as the margins go, now is the time to really be thinking about doing more with less. Because the reality is, all of these things, even the first point about, diversifying your marketing portfolio, these are all good ideas to always do, right? So that's the thing.
Yeah.
The kind of the too long didn't read of all of these things are just keep doing good stuff, keep doing good marketing and good fulfillment, and save money. If there was anything I would add to this that I might suggest is worth considering, which is a personal preference, is your last line of defense is your personal finances. So you as the owner-operator, ideally you're in a place where the business is really insulated. I think another form of solace that one might be able to take is to know that you and your family are okay, that God forbid things got really weird for a little while, you could at least in theory get by without having to pull anything out of the business, right? And again, you have the same issue there, quite frankly. So if you're holding on to a year's worth of personal living expenses in cash, I don't know. Again, I have to keep, I'm not an economist. I'm not a financial person really, but I don't know that actually makes a lot of sense right now. I think it'd be better to find something that is a reasonably quote unquote safe asset that's going to have some kind of return, but that is highly liquid. Because what you don't want to do is, if that is your version of an emergency savings account, you don't want to not be able to access it. God forbid things get really, really weird. So the challenge is a lot of how you decide. This is not really a math equation. It's a psychology, personal preference, personal safety equation.
Yeah, well, I love that you brought it up because I think that's it. I mean, at least that's been part of our personal approach, is that, we try to take money out of the business as owners as frequently as we can. And we also have this kind of agreement as co-owners that we're also willing to reinvest if needed.
Totally.
That some of our personal money will absolutely go back in the business as a last resort, but it's still a resort, right? It's still an option for us to reinvest. And so if you have been actively taking money out of the business, and we think you should, that some of that money is put aside so that you can help, quote, save the business if needed, or give another loan to your business if you need to, or reinvest on some level. And for me, that's always provided a little bit of solace, knowing that both of us are thinking like that, that we can jump in if the banks refuse to, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So right now, I have to say, I'm feeling a lot of, I don't know, comfort's the exact word, but kind of. The other thing that I think is maybe the happy thought that I would, if I could, coach you up, dear listener, if you're having any anxiety about this, no, is, we really thought about this, and I'm writing an email post on this too, because I think it's really important. And strange, I'm not seeing anybody talk about this yet, and I'm like, is anyone else watching what's happening? And we could be wrong, right, of course, but the reality is there's not really a lot of downside to preparing and being extra thoughtful in the next 6 months, and maybe it'll all blow over. I don't think it's going to this point. I think we're about to get smacked. And Sequoia's deck, to give you a little more insight into their approach, their perspective is this is going to likely be a lot more difficult 1 to 2 years than COVID was. Because COVID, I think, was certainly more emotionally challenging. And I had the perverse dark thought the other day, would I rather be really, really broke, but at least be able to hang out with my friends? I don't know. I think I'd almost rather deal with a tougher financial environment, but be able to go hang out, right? I think the thing that did not work, or was more challenging for me emotionally, I would say, was, even though, not that we were raking it in, but the reality is, we had the PPP, we massively cut our expenses. There was a lot more psychological stress around the changes that COVID required us to make. And part of that was because we all just felt so isolated, right? So, I'm not advocating for, I don't care, let's completely wreck the economy because we'll be able to hang out with the people we love and we'll be able to see people. I'm certainly not saying that. But I guess one thing I will say is we all now have armor that we didn't have a couple years ago, right? So I can say for myself personally, emotionally, if things get really bad, I definitely went through a 48-hour funk after it became apparent to me how bad it's looking like things are going to get and sort of where we're at. And then I was like, all right, well, whatever, here we go again. It's fine. Yes, it's unfair, but whatever. We have maybe another couple years, and maybe this is going to be tougher in some ways. Okay, good. I guess I'm going to become an even better operator because we're not going to lose. We're not going to not figure it out. And we've developed a lot of skills we didn't have a couple years ago, all of which I believe we can leverage to great effect to withstand an apocalypse-ish, apocalypse-y moment.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I want to reiterate that, like to Mark's point there, which is there's very little downside to preparing. right? I mean,
Yeah.
because what we're not recommending is you do the Elon Musk, just fire 10% of your employees out of a gut feeling. Like that's not, I don't think that's the move. Then again, I don't run companies as big as his, right? So, and he gets to do what he wants. But ultimately for us, we think doing things like we mentioned here, which is some sensible, making sure our profit margin's on point, making sure we have great ways to access clients, even this changing environment of client behaviors and market changes. And, just making sure that we have access to cash to weather any ups and downs. Like those are great things to do regardless. You can't go wrong. And to Mark's point, many of you, if you made it this far, you've made it through some ups and downs already. So leaning on your lessons learned and expertise you've already gained as an operator will only serve you as more storms head our way. And we hope we're wrong, right? I hope they're not coming.
Yeah.
But even if they are, I imagine I feel confident we're going to get through it.
I also think one other thing that is not really a happy thought, because none of these are things that you feel particularly good about, but I suspect we're going to see some major changes in the labor market for the past 6 months. It's been no secret the past 12 months, maybe a little bit longer. It's felt very stressful looking to hire people. It's been hard to find people. People are demanding more money. Again, I'm not like hoping for this, because there's some really negative things that are happening to the society that could lead to making our life easier when it comes to labor market. But in practice, what's going to start happening is a lot of people are looking to downsize already. A lot of people are doing hiring freezes. A lot of organizations now, if they lose someone, are seeing, okay, do we need to hire anybody else? Maybe we can just be leaner for a while. And in addition to encouraging you to consider how lean your headcount can be, if and when you do need to find someone, there's a possibility that in the next, say, 3-6 months, the challenging economic conditions are going to make that a little bit easier, at least.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think maybe that's a topic for another podcast, because I think, talking more about finding people right now, finding great hires and figuring out what your headcount is, I think that could be a topic for another chat. So let's leave it there, my friends. Let's, hopefully this did enough to scare you a little, to pay attention.
Just a little. Just a bit.
But not too much to make you panic.
Action, yes.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want you to freeze. So thank you so much, my friends. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Well, I hope you loved today's podcast, and forgive me, I want to remind you one more time, if you haven't already done so, head over to businessofunicorns.com, click the button, and get your free self-assessment, the ultimate training gym owner report card. I promise you, you're going to want to dig into this resource and get the support you need, finding crystal clarity on exactly where you need to be focusing to create a life and a business you love.